snowing so bright, noticing the days hurrying by. When you're in love, my, how they fly.
Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz interview series with Grammy-recognized jazz singer Tianna Hall. We got into her new 2024 CD, The Vintage Jukebox, and A Great Life in Jazz. This vocal powerhouse is based in Houston, Texas, and has had a very colorful career. She is a distinguished alumna of the University of Houston and has been going solid ever since. Dig this story.
Well, hey, it's great to meet you. Thank you for taking a minute out
Likewise.
today. I appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me.
So before we get into the Vintage Jukebox, I want to know, being a musician going through COVID was quite a thing, and 4 years ago we were still kind of trying to get our handle on how long it was going to last and all the ramifications. So how did you make it through that time period, and how was this album influenced by that?
So it was a really difficult period for me. I'm a full-time pro, and I literally am doing jobbing gigs every single night of the week. So for me to go from having 6 to 7 gigs to 0 in the course of literally 2 days, I was devastated financially. I did have some financial assistance through the Grammys, and that was helpful. And there was a couple of different entities that were specifically for musicians that helped me. But, that didn't go very far. It was just a couple of $1,000s. But it was enough for me to be able to feed my children these days. But what I ended up doing was quarantinigrams is what I called them. It was a brand I created so that I could go and do like singing telegrams, socially distanced from driveways. And people were, because you couldn't celebrate anything. No one could go to a restaurant. No one could have a party. So they felt like they had to do something to celebrate birthdays and anniversaries and whatnot. And so people would hire me to come and dressing different characters and sing in their driveways, and it was really silly, but it got me through the quarantine so that I was able to pay for my rent and food and my bills. It was definitely different, but it got me through.
So I really enjoy this new album. I've profiled it on the show. Talk to me a little bit about how you put this one together.
Well, thanks so much. I'm glad you're enjoying it. This is my 8th full-length album. Now, this one, I specifically wanted a song from every decade since the 1910s. So I went through and I selected a song from each decade that spoke to me in some way or another. So of course, Smile is on there, Charlie Chaplin, and then we also have some more modern songs that were from my childhood, my high school years, and college. That a lot of them, I was a bit of a geek, and I was listening to mostly classical music and musical theater growing up, but and some of the big band standard stuff, but I was also influenced by what my brother and sister and my friends were listening to because they listened to the typical pop music at the time. So all of that influenced the songs that I chose. They somehow, each song spoke to me in some way or another.
So how did this journey into the music begin for you? How did music become your life, and more specifically jazz?
Well, it's always been my life. I started doing musical theater productions when I was 4 years old, and then started working professionally in regional theaters when I was 10. So I grew up with a musical theater background. I started working with the Houston Grand Opera, and I was a voice major focused on opera in college. But once I was getting near the end of my degree, I started doing jazz gigs, and it just seemed a little silly for me to get a degree in voice when it was focused on opera. I knew I was never going to do that for a living. And so I started turning my love of musical theater into doing a lot of the standard repertoire. There's so much of it that correlates. And so I knew so many songs and had so much of the repertoire under my belt just from being a musical theater kid that the transition was pretty smooth. I was mentored by Paul English. He's a pianist here in Houston, and he heard me doing a cabaret performance and said that I had really natural phrasing for jazz, and So I took the ball and I ran with it when he hired me for a job, and I've been gigging ever since. That's been 21 years ago.
So what was the first live jazz show you saw that really blew you away?
Oh, gosh. Probably Harry Connick Jr. as a quartet. I really admire him very much for his musicianship. And he's capable of going around in the band and playing every single instrument in his big band. It's just unbelievable. But seeing him live and seeing his level of professionalism and showmanship along with his musicianship just really threw me for a loop and gave me a really high goal to focus on. And I always said I wanted to be the girl version of him. And so I've studied instruments as well. I play the guitar and piano, but, you know, the guys that I hire are just monster musicians, so I would never try to play when I can hire them. But I do try to work on my musicianship quite a bit. And so that's always been a focus and a goal for me.
So what is it that you like the best about being a professional musician? What gets you up every day? What do you look forward to?
I really look forward to the human interaction and having the outlet for creativity. It's really cathartic for me, and I suffer a great deal from anxiety and depression, and there's something about getting on the bandstand that just really gives me some relief from all of it. Again, it's very cathartic for me.
So, at the end of the day, why do you love jazz?
I love jazz because the creative elements that are involved and the ability to improvise and really make every song individually your own. And that, to me, is what's really drawn me to jazz over any other genre. I mean, I knew once I did my first gig that I was hooked, and I would never go back to singing opera or musical theater again, and that's been true. I literally started gigging within a week, and the jobs just kept coming. I've been very, very lucky to be able to work so much as a singer, and I really love what I do, and I don't feel like I'm working ever. It's like going to hang out with my friends and having a jam session every night.
So what have you learned from the elders, the legends, the luminaries of the jazz world that you in turn take and taught to the younger players that you get around?
You know, when I first got started, I was mentored by Marcia Frazier. She was my voice coach and helped me learn more about jazz phrasing and some more interesting jazz repertoire that was off the beaten path. She was the pianist for the Duke Ellington Orchestra, and I learned from her that you always hire the best players you can, whether they're at your level or not, because you learn the most from them. And I've hired some mighty grumpy dudes that really taught me a lot. They ain't got nothing on some of my opera coaches though, so there's that. I think the mutual respect is very important, and making sure that you give everyone their own space to be creative in their own right and not just have to focus on accompanying me. I want everyone on my bandstand to always have the ability to express themselves.
You've been in this world of jazz for a while, and, you know, kind of coming out of this pandemic, and there was a lot of changes that happened. Are you hopeful for the talent and for the fulcrum and all of the energy that's going into the jazz world these days?
I really am hopeful. I think we've come a long way, and I think the support that everyone has lent each other has been remarkable. We've become, I think, a closer family, particularly here in Houston. I recently became a member of the Musicians Union, and while it wasn't thriving for decades, we have new leadership, and it's become such a wonderful organization to be a part of, and I'm so thrilled to be able to work with so many new musicians through the union and continue to support each other.
So let's say a jazz DeLorean pulls up in front of your house, and you can go anywhere in the history of jazz and see one show with your own eyes. Where are you going?
I would definitely go see Cole Porter perform in Paris. That's where I would go. And that movie Midnight in Paris, they had a scene where Cole Porter's playing at a piano in the middle of a dinner party or cocktail party, and to me that is just the golden age of jazz. And I think Cole Porter would have been my homeboy. I think we would have been great friends and hit it off delightfully, and I would love to be a part of that world.
So of everything that you've done and accomplished and evolved into over your career, what are you the proudest of?
That's a good question. Out of everything in my career, I can't compare it to my pride over my children. They are both autistic and special needs, and we've worked so hard to see them come so far, and I'm most proud of them and their accomplishments. It pales in comparison to compare anything in my career to them.
I love that answer. My son's 19. His name's Miles for obvious reasons, as you can
imagine.
That's awesome. Yeah, and he's on the spectrum, so I've been in the special needs world for a long time, so I understand. The beauty of these children is that they definitely show you life in a way that you would have never been shown before. It's like
absolutely
from that show Stranger Things. They show you the upside down world.
That's absolutely true. And my son is nonverbal, but he has the ability to communicate things to us that are just remarkable. And he's 13 and still nonverbal. And I say still nonverbal because I still hold out hope that he will one day speak to us. I would give anything to have a conversation with him because I know it would be remarkable.
I remember when my son was 3-4 years old, we used to have therapists come in the house, and I asked the speech therapist at one point, I said, just lay it on me here. Let me know. Is he going to talk? And I just was convinced he wasn't. We did sign language, any other version. And she said, oh, no, don't worry. He's going to talk. And now he talks to everybody. He is constantly asking questions. It's almost like he's a CIA agent. He is digging into everything. So
how fantastic.
It'll happen. It definitely
Congratulations. Congratulations.
Well, thank you. Yeah.
We're really fortunate in that he has perfect receptive language, so he understands and has the cognition. It's all there. Everything is typical. It's not advanced. I mean, he does have some gifts, but yeah, he's still considered nonverbal because he doesn't have the ability to have conversation or answer questions.
Yeah, and that's the thing that they always talk about with Miles, is that he can understand everything, which is how you have to battle. So it all grows over time. So at the end of the day, everyone out there has a perception of you, family, friends, fans, but you ultimately run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
I consider myself the band leader and lead vocalist, but I mean, my guys, I always lean on them for them to lead the band as well. There's an ebb and flow on our bandstand. I'm obviously taking a chorus up front where I'm setting the tempos and counting everything off, but I see myself as the band leader. And is that the question you're asking?
Yeah, you nailed it. That's exactly what I was asking.
Cool.
So if anyone wants to pick up the new album in the proper way, they want to see you live, any of your other albums, all the good business, where do they go?
Sure. All of them are available on iTunes. I have all 8 there. They're also available on Spotify, Amazon, anywhere that you might find digital music. We have it there. So you can also buy directly from me, which is obviously my favorite way because I get the most income from it. That is on tiannahall.com. You can also find my performance calendar there. I literally update it within a minute of a booking, so you can always find me somewhere around Houston performing nearly every night. I'd love to hear from everyone on social media. My Instagram handle is Tianna Hall Jazz, and my handles everywhere else are just simply Tianna Hall.
Well, thank you so much for your story. Thank you for opening up. Best of luck with everything.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I really appreciate this opportunity.
Thanks for listening and tuning into another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest singers and players in Houston, Kansas City, and spots all over the world, giving fans all that jazz. Thanks to Tianna for coming on by the show. If you want to hear more Neon Jazz interviews, you can find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Subscribe to us at YouTube. And for everything Neon Jazz, go to theneonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, Enjoy the jazz, my friends.
Neon Jazz.